Hello and welcome to the Rusted Brush. Today we're going to be talking about a game that I think a lot of narrative war gamers are going to be really interested in, and that is Spectre Aftermath. Now if you've been around this channel for a while, you'll know I love smaller skirmish games, things like Mordheim and Trench Crusade, and Aftermath fits into that space really nicely, but with a very different setting. Instead of ruined buildings or medievalish World War I trenches, Aftermath takes place in something called the Zone. Basically, in our modern world, a massive contaminated region created after an experimental weapon detonated somewhere in Eastern Europe. The area has been sealed off from the rest of the world. But inside the Zone, there are these incredible valuable materials called cascade elements, and they're so valuable that different factions are secretly sending small teams inside to retrieve them. So what you end up with are these small squads of operators, scavengers, scientists, and mercenaries all sneaking around this ruined landscape trying to survive, find artifacts, and get back out alive. If you played any of the Stalker video games, then this should be very familiar. This is why this game appealed to me so much. I absolutely love the Stalker franchise. I grew up playing these games and still play them, and other games inspired by them. Aftermath focuses on very small squads, usually around 4 to 6 characters, exploring the Zone, fighting other teams, and trying to survive the environment long enough to get back out. Mechanically, it uses a D100 system, and the combat is very lethal, so positioning and caution matter a lot more than just running forward and shooting. You also have a big threat from the Zone itself, with radiation, strange anomalies, and environmental hazards constantly messing with your plans. It's a really cool setting that sits somewhere between a skirmish game and a survival narrative game. And with that out of the way, let's take a look at the models I picked up for this. These are the official models from Spectre Aftermath. These models are 3D prints but are good quality, and I had very little hobby work to actually do, aside from gluing on the bases and removing some supports that were left on. So let's move on to actually painting them. After priming, I started painting the main colors that I'll be using, which is tan and a multitude of different greens. For the tans, I'm using Xandri dust to start with. The tans are mostly for the Soviet-era clothing, which you can tell apart from having the quilted lines. Then I go over these areas with AK Ochre to bring a more yellow tinge to them. For the pouches, bags, and other stuff that I want to tan, I used Army Painter Desert Yellow instead. This was to help contrast and not to blend in with the Soviet painted clothing I did. Now for the greens, I'm using a few variations, and this is going to be used on mostly the clothing, backpack, and armor plate carriers. The first green I use is AK Dark Green mixed with Desolate Brown Speed Paint. Then I highlighted that with just the dark green. The other greens I used are AK Golden Olive, AK Green Gray, and AK Olive Green. Now for the biochemical clothing, or MBC suits, I used Vallejo Pastel Green mixed with Desolate Brown, and then highlighted that with Vallejo Pastel Green. For some of the other biochemical suits, I used Mechanica Standard Gray with a wash of Gravelord Gray after. Then I highlighted that with Vallejo Uniform Gray. I also did this with some of the gas masks, and then painted them with Vallejo Cold White afterwards. On this one in specific, I used Vallejo Light Green Blue, then highlighted that with AK Pastel Blue. Now I started painting some camo patterns with AK Chocolate Brown, AK Leather Brown, and various different green tones. For the wooden furniture of the guns, I used AK Tan Earth and gave a wash of Reichland Flesh specifically to the Mosin rifle. For the mags of the AKs, I used AK Orange Brown, and this was to mimic the Bakelite style mags that AKs sometimes use, but of course you could paint this in so many different colors. All of the boots, some of the gas masks, and the metal bits of the weapons were painted with Gravelord Gray mixed with Abaddon Black. Then I started painting the metal bits of the weapons with AK natural steel to mimic chipping. After that, I gave the models an enamel wash of engine grime, wiped off the excess, then gave it a matte varnish. Once that was done, I based the models with a mix of stuff from Scenics, some miniature bricks I had, and some dead seagrass, flocking, and a bit of AK Stillwater, and that was that. So here are the models finished. Overall, I'm really happy with how this little team turned out, because Aftermath focuses on such small squads, each model kind of has its own character, which makes them really fun to paint and gives them a lot of personality too. I tried to keep the colors fairly grounded and practical, something that feels like it could actually operate inside the zone rather than anything too flashy. These guys are supposed to be sneaking through abandoned towns, ruined industrial areas, and not standing out in the open. What I also really like about painting models for this game is that you only need a handful of figures to have a complete force. It's a nice change of pace from painting entire armies, and it gives you a lot more time to focus on details of each individual model. And honestly, I think these kinds of small narrative games really benefit from that. When you only have 4 or 5 characters on the table, every casualty actually matters, and you start to get attached to the team pretty quickly. I'm definitely looking forward to getting these on the table and seeing how long they actually survive in the zone. Anyways, that's it for today, so remember to like and subscribe. Take care, everyone.